Welcome, everyone. And we're talking about operating models. That's our session. So before we jump into the whole topic of generating that blueprint of future-proofing operating models, I'd like to get a sense of, from your perspective, of where we are now and why we need to change. So I'm going to start with, we'll just start over there on that side. You have the mic.
I think I was holding the microphone.
Exactly, and you were ready and eager to jump in. Let's go.
Good afternoon, everybody. So Richard Doughty, I'm from Cerillion Technologies and also a technologist. So I also answered from a technological perspective. And for us, that telco to techco transformation touches on all the areas listed. But where we're able to help and where we see some of the biggest wins is on the technology changes. And specifically, it's moving away from the stovepipes that Julian was discussing, that vertical integration, which is prevalent throughout the industry. And I'm talking about things like separation by service type, fixed line or wireless, separation by consumer or B2B, separation by resale or wholesale, or even by completely different market segments, utilities, telcos, and other things. So instead of being vertically integrated, having a horizontal integration brings benefits on scale, on reuse, on common data models. And these things taken together provide that transformational change driven by software that enables a move from a traditional telco into a technology-based organization.
Thank you. Do you want to hand the mic to Gert?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mathieu Horn. I'm from Tripica. So we're doing digital BSS. We're a bit in the same field here than Richard. I think when we look at the question of future-proof operating model, new business model for telcos, we're thinking about simplification. We heard that before. How do you simplify your business? And how do you expand your business into new business lines? My point of view is, can you really simplify your current operations? Whether you do it vertically or horizontally, can you just do it from the inside? Is it the best way to drive that innovation? It's very, very complex to do that. Simplifying everything when the CFO is asking you to keep the top line, it's very complex. My take on this is that if you want to innovate, be a pirate. Start on the side. Do something that's outside of the company. And from there, grow something new. I have examples from that of companies going into new industry, and the first thing they did is that they bought a legacy. So they had a legacy business, they went into a new business, and they started by buying a legacy. That didn't go very well.
Thank you. Gert?
CBF. I think that's an abbreviation for C for customer-centric, B for brave decisions, and F for focus. And I think that's what's, for me, all about it. I think I'm a living example of a brave decision. I think I'm a commercial guy heading a technical department. It's not about technology, it's about customers, it's about solutions to customers, and that's what will change the market, and that's what we're trying to do in Norlys. And I think we're on a good way, and I'll hopefully explain some of the details why we're doing it and how we're doing it in this panel. But it's CBF, it's a new abbreviation, so note it down, please.
Eduardo, why the need for change? Talk to us. Should just work.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Joann, I think that telcos are going through quite a significant existential crisis right now. Market is flat. The revenues have been declining for years. The expectation of growth is very, very limited, at least in the connectivity side. So there's not really many options that are out there. The other, currently, with the current model. Mm-hmm. At the same time, when we're looking for new prospect for growth, we also realize that we've been delegating our innovation factory to network vendor providers for a long time, especially when it comes to jumping from 1 gig to 10 gig, 10 gig to 100 gig, and so on. So that puts additional pressure on the ability to really innovate, especially when we're considering how software companies innovate. It's in a very, very different framework than us. So I think we're all in agreement that something definitely needs to change. I think people is also okay to take bold decisions at this stage, but the question is what? So there are multiple options on the table, whether it's going from telco to techco in terms of converting us into software companies or or technical companies, expanding our service offering with over-the-top marketplaces and so on. But I think that, especially in the focus around telco to techco, the two main things that we need to consider is definitely technology is important, and there are going to be CTOs across the entire event trying to simplify their IT stack, and that is absolutely fundamental for this to happen. But I would like to at least us or me, focus on what I consider the two most important parts. First is the financial transformation that is required for us to have that oxygen to build whatever on top. And the other one is how we're going to convert organizations that are not typically digitally oriented, and how we're going to develop this digital mindset. I think that these are the two main aspects of the discussion, at least from our side.
And is that inclusive, like, is that part of the operating model transformation, or is that in addition?
It's absolutely, because I may be able to explain it later, but before we discuss the operating model itself in terms of processes, people, technology, and culture, we also need to identify what is the kind of entity that financially enables us to make that happen. And also, from a people and culture side, how we're going to onboard these people and create some sort of cultural movements that allow us to develop this digital mindset.
Okay, very good, thank you. So my next question actually is on the operating model and how you see that changing to support new business models in the future.
Okay.
Do you
happy to
continue and then we'll come back?
Yeah, happy to start and then I'll take it over there. So coming back to the discussion about the entity, one of the challenges that at least we've seen in the telco space is our organizations are very high capital intensive.
Capital investment, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not native. So we're very high on capital expenses, either because of network expansions, towers, 5G, whatever. And that is fine, but the reality is that I foresee two kind of businesses moving forward. One that is more focused on the infrastructure side, and obviously we'll have network expansions and infrastructure and so on. That's perfectly fine. And those organizations, that part of the organization, that needs to let me coin it, well, I think that BCG coined the term as bionic organizations. And that's probably one of the only ways they have to survive. Very careful with CapEx, especially around investment in fiber and so on. And very, very focused on operational agility and efficiencies. That's why they are coined by bionic. But in the other side, we must also realize that the financial needs of the service part of the business, they may not be covered by them, especially around talent, about OPEX expenses, and so on. So a potential option could be about creating this alternative organization that is much more fluid about OPEX. The valuation of this organization is basically driven by the value that it creates in the society and the services that it provides, assuming that this company would not only serve connectivity. There needs to be an over-the-top layer, whether it's around marketplaces, whether around orchestrating and aggregating others, whatever. This organization, because it's much more fluid on OPEX, because it has less pressure on the EBITDA factoring, it has a chance not just to attract the talent that currently is being not stolen by mayors of organizations, but basically we can have the right incentive for them to stay in one side, but at the same time, we can focus that the revenue that is generating by this organization is coming from the specific products that are created, which puts much more pressure on the product team to be more cohesive and be able to deliver the right value that is expected, whether it is in terms of free cash flow every month or whatever. But it's not only about how we use CapEx. And that's a major problem because I think it's an issue that all of us have over here when we are talking about cloud consumption, where we're talking about elasticity and all of that is OPEX. If we want to be able to participate into those games and be as agile as we want to be with our decisions, we need to have enough oxygen in the background and the right behaviors. That's why the first part of the operating model, in our view, or of the decision is, what is the kind of business we want to operate? And then we can jump into the details of how these specific units would work.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Let me try to be a little more concrete. Give an example of, I think, how we have kind of tried to from an organizational point of view, be more effective and more focused, and it kind of counters as well brave decisions. I think we took a decision a couple of years ago to basically have a clear split of responsibility between our infrastructure part of the business in the Norlys group and the service provider customer-facing business in our company. I think why? Because of focus. I think we wanted to create and build the most effective infrastructure provider in Denmark. I think we have by far now the largest fiber network in Denmark, and they are by far the most effective in rolling out that fiber network to customers. With one clear KPI, we needed to reach out by the end of this year to basically enable our 800,000 owners to have a fiber connection to the home. So that's one, that's focus. We took another brave decision on the network side, basically saying we need to open that network to everybody. So every service provider who wants to kind of introduce its services on that network should be able to do so. So we standardized the way you could access our network. We opened it up as one of the first networks for all service providers, thereby enabling a competition inside the Norlys group for the service provider, which I'm a part of. And basically, I think it helped us. I think it helped us to be even more competitive on our home ground, and it will definitely help us as a service provider to be more effective and competitive when we are kind of catching customers outside of our home turf. So that's again focus for the service provider, focus for the infrastructure owner. It links with the technology. Of course, technology is important, and I think we were facing something like plus 20 acquisitions throughout the lifetime of our company. A lot of spaghetti, a lot of IT spaghetti, a lot of systems in place, legacy systems, and we needed to clean up those systems. So another brave decision was basically to say, let's clean up that IT legacy network we have. I think 4 main BSS systems. Let's basically clean them out. Let's throw them away. Let's build our future on one new agile system. Thanks to Cerillion for supporting us in that endeavor. So I think it's kind of the size of our company. I think it's the most brave decision on an IT side any company of ours has undertaken. It's not easy. It's super complex, but we will get there, and then we will end up with one kind of joint BSS system, and thereby creating efficiency and custom convenience and even better solutions. So I think that's the game for us. That's basically focus and...
So on the focus side, right, you were talking about the kind of separation between the infrastructure layer and basically the service layer of the business, similar to what we were hearing this morning at the keynotes. Is that exactly what you were doing? Did you create completely separate businesses so that you could get the right...
Separate. I'm looking at, as a service provider, I'm looking at our infrastructure in-house or in-group infrastructure as I look at every other infrastructure owner in Denmark. So I want to provide my services to on that network, but on any other network as well in Denmark.
But how different was the operating models on those two different sides? Was it?
But it's completely different because before it was embedded, the network was embedded with the customer side of the business, and now we basically separated it. So there's the customer focus of the infrastructure owner is basically other service providers only, and the end customer, TV, infrastructure, internet, that's basically on the service provider side.
And you were talking about the exposure from the network layer. Did you use standard APIs to enable that?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's very, very clear. Mathieu, can you?
Yes, I think it's a great example. I mean, you don't see a lot of companies who tackle the challenge to completely transform their business from the inside and saying, okay, I mean, it's coming through different acquisition, but you're not trying to protect a legacy. You're not trying to protect revenues. You have a vision for the future saying, I want to build something that's going to be completely different and be able to expand into new product line. And the only solution for that is to get rid of the past. Not that many telcos are ready to do that. Everybody is afraid of going that way. So finding the right architecture, separating the network or in utilities, the grids, it has to go that way, because it's true that we are going towards a more OPEX-based system. And in utilities, it's really the only solution. When you're an energy supplier, unless you're a producer yourself, but basically you're buying energy and you're reselling it. It's the same thing for the telco now. Basically, telcos are getting rid of their towers. So all telcos are becoming MVNOs. So we are moving toward an OpEx-based model. Plus the new solutions, the modern solutions are going to run on the cloud, which are OpEx-based. So basically, this OpEx model allows you to take the risk to get rid of everything else that you had, not protecting past investment, but looking at the future. And I think that's the only way to be successful. But it takes a lot of courage, and not that many players are ready to go there.
Thank you.
So, Eduardo was talking quite a bit about, I think, sort of optimizing costs and driving out costs from the business, but of course that doesn't help with growth. Certainly for us, the idea behind the platforms is to drive growth, but as Eduardo rightly said, what's becoming a commoditized market. And how do you drive growth when you're a commodity? It's really through brand, and that means customer focus. You have to understand the customer, you have to get close to the customer, and they have to be able to identify you and stand out from the crowd. The horizontal integration, one of the things that allows you to do is know the customer in all the different aspects. So you might have a customer and they have relationships with you in a retail capacity, they're a consumer customer, they may well have service from you as a business customer in their corporation, they may well through that corporation be a reseller of your products and they have another relationship, or indeed as well a supplier. And the ability to understand that individual, that person, and all the different relationships with you gives you access, understanding, and leverage across them. So that's very important. Having that horizontal deployment, though, doesn't mean you can't incorporate the culture and the processes that are always going to be unique to those different areas of the business. Wholesale sides of the business understandably work in different ways to consumer. They're doing very different things. They have different processes, they have different people, different goals, different focus. But within one horizontal platform, much like a cube, you can turn it to different sides and it can present a different face. So I completely agree with Gert, that customer-centric focus should be the goal of the operating model change. Obviously, driving out cost is fundamental. The business has to be profitable. But in terms of moving forward, the customer's got to be at the center.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Gert just a question from a slightly different angle, which is about, this session is about growth, and the whole event really is about igniting growth. And a key part of that is the whole enabling new business models. So what operational changes do you believe are essential to enable new business models?
It's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in, the customer-centric focus. I do believe in creating and building a brand. I think that's why we've, again, taken a couple of brave decisions, killing 2 major brands over the last couple of years. Last Tuesday, we killed the last one, which was the kind of, I think it lived for 45 years. It was the best well-known TV brand in Denmark. And we had to kill it because kind of growing, it has to be under the name of Norlys. And I think that's so that kind of customers understand that they can get more than kind of TV or internet or energy in the future as well, mobile. I think we signed the deal with Cerillion on Friday. So I think that's for us, the emphasis on creating value and growth. That's basically to be able to cater for that, looking at not as customers, but looking at households, and basically be able to serve a household with all its needs for the future, which has a lot to do with telecommunication, but a lot with other stuff as well. So partnerships will help us as well to grow that business. So the more we can help and cater families and households in the future, I think that's the growth we're looking into.
Deliver value.
Yeah, under one brand.
Okay. Anyone want to jump in on that?
Yes, I'm actually a big fan of marketing, so I do believe that regardless if it's 1 or 2 or multiple brands, it's about how do you develop that and how do you make your customers know that you exist and that you're relevant for them and the emotional connections you're able to connect. Regardless of that, I think that one of the, being more specific about operating changes, I believe that telcos are currently driven by sales and delivery in terms of OpEx optimization and so on. But those are the actual forces today. I foresee techcos being actually driven by product. I foresee product being part of the leadership team. I foresee product having own and dedicated resources for them to execute. Currently, we're seeing product in telco as Ethernet or IP access or SD-WAN or whatever. I'm probably seeing it in a different stage because Colt has already launched its network as a service platform and offering and so on. So I'm not seeing it product as Ethernet. I'm probably seeing it product as the platform that will be able to deliver these services to the customer. So the kind of product teams that I see is API product, platform product, staff product. And that is really interesting because that requires, the reason why, at least to my observation, why technology companies are growing so much is because they are very dedicated. They're very focused into one thing and one thing only. It's very unlikely that you're able to make very quick decisions and communicate your strategy successfully and make people feel part of the actual team if they are not really part of the team. So this sense of sharing resources and so on, it can have a sense in very specific areas of the organization, but not in the strategic core. So my approach is, or at least my point of view is more about, let's bring more IT people inside of the product team. Let's have engineering closer to the product team. Let's have dedicated people for UI UX. But UI UX is not only like the funny part that you see on the screen. It's about assessing the end-to-end user experience for the customer. Not just the digital side, but being able to capture what happens when they call me, what happens when the field engineer goes on site, and these kind of things. And that is absolutely fundamental because you're only able to capture that part of the value that customers are willing to pay for if it's really awesome. Mm-hmm. I am used to, if I have a problem with my credit card, I'm able to solve it in 5 minutes. If I have a problem with my Uber, I can get to the location in 10 minutes. Then if you see it, in the next 5 years, Gen Zs are going to be decision makers. So these are the people that will need to start getting their buy-ins from in certain amount of things. So how are we going to seduce them? Now it's no longer like a Gen Z problem when it comes to staffing and, oh, my culture, my problem. No. About my customers are also going to be Gen Zs and millennials and so on. Mm-hmm. And we're looking for a very different way of approaching brands and services and so on. If I have to choose a provider, obviously the digital part is going to be like fundamental. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the parts, and specifically for the culture thing, I think we, as an industry, we need to start having like more open discussions about what cultural transformation is all about. It's about creating a movement. It's about creating something that people feel related to. It's not a mandate top to down. And when you're actually making people owner of their decisions, they feel more like part of the pie, and that's, again, it's not only for this panel to discuss, but openly, in each of us in our organizations, we need to have these bold discussions.
Thank you. You've tackled it from many different angles. I'm going to go back to Richard now, actually, to tackle, you've talked about horizontal platforms and things like that. When you're thinking of operating models, how do you ensure that it breaks down the silos across the business, and how do you make sure that you're ready and set to go for scale?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of breaking down the silos, it's about deploying platforms that are cross-silo capable. So convergence, in one word, multi-product capable, so they're able to define, sell, provision, charge, and bill across fixed, mobile, content, third-party, SATCOMs, VOD, whatever it might be. It's about having that capability to enable different business groups to work within them. Not necessarily sharing data, of course, that can be tenanted, both for business reasons at a financial level, also for security and privacy reasons. So they can have their own processes within them. But where possible, you're reusing, you're inheriting work that's done before, and creating an abstraction layer so you're empowering the business so that you don't need to bring IT people in order to launch new commercial offers. You're giving them the tools within that so they can define, price, and publish without any other involvement. In terms of doing it at scale, well, there's a large part to play with cloud infrastructure, public cloud infrastructure that allows you to take embryonic ideas and ramp those up very quickly, and maybe then transitioning into private cloud when you have a platform which has achieved stability and predictability as well. Potentially hybrid cloud options to try and get those best of both worlds from the flexibility that the public cloud hyperscalers bring, as well as the cost benefits that you might get from private cloud solutions. So there's a combination of approaches.
Thank you. So coming to Mathieu, the same question, but to different industry verticals. So capturing that breakdown of silo, scaling, but actually feeding multiple verticals?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Of course, we need to break down the silos, but I have a question on what Richard just said. Can convergence be really achieved on a set of multiple products? I mean, when you're doing both energy and mobile, for example, can you do that in the same platform? I mean, we as a platform, we are both in utilities and in telco, so we do both. But if I had a client asking me to do both utilities and mobile on the same platform, is that the best option? Because when you look at it, the business processes are not the same. So do you want to take...
But the process would be different. That's exactly my point. You don't need two separate platforms to have two separate processes.
Yes, you can have one platform, but implemented in such a way for utilities and implemented maybe in another way because the business processes are not the same. So can you do convergence, or do you still need to have some kind of silos that allows you to have the best experience on the service that you're delivering to your user? Do you want to have constraints because you're doing some stuff on utilities that will constrain you on what you want to do on fixed or mobile, for example?
But then those constraints should be a business choice, not a system limitation. So you build in the constraints which are business rules, come from security or privacy or territory, data sovereignty, whatever they might be, but you're not limited by the system.
One thing for sure is that you don't want to have the old silos where people are not talking to each other, because in the end, it's a lot of a people problem. Can you build what you have done? Can you do innovative stuff with the same people who have been used to work in a certain way at the telcos? Probably not. This is where you need to bring in new blood, and you need to make sure that the people who have the spirit of pirates who are ready to build something new will be able to do that without taking with them all the burden of the legacy, which is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that the traditional telcos are faced with.
I tend to agree with you. I think I'm a symbol of one of our biggest challenges. Male, plus 30 years in telco. I think I'm one of the part of the problem. I think for the future, I think that's going to be one of our main challenges in Norlys. That's basically attracting talent and attracting different talent than telco talent. I think I don't have the answer to the future for everything. I have my kind of backpack of knowledge from the telco sector, but seriously, it's of no use 30 years from now. So I think we need to be able to attract young talent, people who are thinking completely different, building an organizational structure which kind of creates focus, but still kind of glues together the whole company. And I think as one of the elements we have in Norlys, I think top 200 managers in our group are basically bonused on exactly the same KPIs. I think we should never forget that we're part of a group with one goal to kind of make that group even better and stronger, undependent on which kind of silo, because we don't have silos. And seriously, I think I've worked in a lot of larger companies. I've never been in a place where there's basically the word silo doesn't exist, because we don't accept it. And it's from the group CEO down. I think if you kind of think like silo, you're just out.
Behave it, yeah.
Then your future is gone. I think
we're almost out of time, but I want to give each of you literally like 10, 20 seconds to say the top 2 things that needs to change from your perspective. We'll start with yourself, Mathieu. Very briefly, what's the most essential thing that you believe needs to change for an organization to achieve growth?
I think probably the single most important thing is don't try to defend your yesterday's business. That's the most important thing. Be courageous, kill your business yourself, because somebody else is going to kill it for you if you don't do it.
Okay, very good, thank you.
From my point of view, it's kind of, it's partnering. I think a lot of companies present at this exhibition are the ones we need to help us, because we do not cater to do it ourselves. We need to have partners who think differently and who brings in technology. Sorry to say, we need technology, but who brings in solutions and help us serve our customers even better. And then it's talent, 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 and talent.
Lovely.
It's young talent.
Lovely, thank you.
For once, I'll be brief. The first one is we need to have willingness to onboard talent from different industries. and capture different point of views. And the second one is it's fundamental that we create an environment that allows people not just to try, to fail, but basically to innovate. And this may sound like, oh, very typical. This is like a Mises speech. But really, I mean, ensure that you give, I don't know, a certain amount of budget for people just to try. Simplify RFP processes and allow your team to play with data. I mean, otherwise it's absolutely impossible. You're able to survive in the future.
Thank you. Brilliant insights. Richard?
Make your silos software separated and not physically limited.
Brilliant. Any burning questions from the audience? If not, we will move swiftly along. I want to thank you all. That was really, really good. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Gert. Thanks so much, Mathieu. Thanks, Richard. That was great.